the brotherhood of light, by the power of the iron and might, in the freedom's name, crying of freedom reign. Power of hope, freedom reign, good and peace in God's name, symbol of our saints and reign, protect the keeper of the flame, by the sacred power, guard us every hour. Silent love, standing guard, in the cause of pure regard, for the brothers of the light, for our brotherhood in white. Bring us the relief, bring us Noah's seal. Flower of hope, grief of pain, good and peace in God's name, symbol of our saints and reign, protect the keeper of the flame, by the secret power, guard us every hour. Kings of his king, our secret power, guards the earth every hour, from the surface everywhere beams, through the ocean lies supreme, send protection's plea, from thy great heart of peace. Flower of hope, grief of pain, good and peace in God's name, symbol of our saints and reign, protect the keeper of the flame, by the sacred power, guard us every hour.
May you be clothed with perfection's mighty power, and may your consciousness embody so much divine grace this hour that you shall never again know the power of human limitation. I am come this blessed morning to appraise you of many things, but especially to convey to your waiting consciousness the immanence and omnipresence of the Spirit of light of the great white brotherhood. As I stand before you today, I come not in that mortal form which some men are accustomed to see me in. I am manifesting and radiating in my mighty I am presence the fullness of my mighty body of transcendent light. Those of you who are able to perceive me now will see me as somewhat a seraphic being. I call this to your attention, for some among you are able to identify the hierarchical order of the angels, and I prefer then that you sense that I come with a flame of living adoration to the very principle of living truth, and to bring consolation to those hearts that have long sought for the truth and have not always found it. Precious ones of the light, the discovery of any object always brings happiness to the discoverer, providing that which is found is a worthy object. Those in search of spiritual treasures, when finding them, are doubly delighted, for not only has the object of their search been fulfilled, but they are able to discover a priceless gem of the ages. I recall an instance many, many years ago in a previous embodiment, when connected with the governmental circles of a great nation. A specific empress lost a very valuable trinket. I call it now a trinket, but then I esteemed it to be a great jewel. She was very, very disturbed at the loss of this treasure, and she practically was ready to have us all beheaded who were serving in what is the counterpart of the secret service of that specific nation. Blessed and beloved ones, it was with an infinite spirit of spiritual meditation that I was able to discover this treasure which was lost. And when I discovered it, it was within her own chambers and within reach of her own arm. Much to her mortification, I was admonished by her and a prince of the realm to tell no one. And so, at the present hour, I, who have been admonished through the ages to tell no one, find myself now in the process of telling you some of the wonders of immortal life. And it is a joy to do so, for my tongue is loosed and I speak freely upon this occasion. I trust that you will appreciate all that I am saying to you, for it is given to you in the light of secrecy concerning a time that is now past. And inasmuch as that specific empress is not now embodied or seated among you, I feel a great measure of safety in my present status. Blessed and beloved ones, may the great enfolding love of Saint Germain and of those who have guarded the supremacy of the diplomatic secrecy of immortal life now enfold you. Do you realize, precious ones of the light, that your nation, America, has countless times stood in peril which threatened to destroy all the treasures of the past, all that men had fought for and envisioned in their consciousness was like a precious piece of Dresden, and it threatened to be dashed in pieces by vandals who did not hesitate in the least to dash the most precious objects to the earth and behold it shattered into 1,000,000 pieces, as they say. Beloved ones, on almost each one of these occasions, one of us, either myself or one engaged in the service of the light, stood guard and found some mind or receptive consciousness within the circles of government to whom we could reach either by dream, by vision, or by direct apprehension. I recall on one occasion when it was necessary to cause fear within an individual to amplify, and this may seem counter to some of your concepts, but it was necessary to take and play upon a natural fear within a certain individual in order to get him to act. And in the interest of humanity, we permitted his own fear to intensify so that in his apprehension he recognized that he ought to double-check the security measures involved in the security of this great nation. And as a result of his own fear, he did come to discover that which was a great threat to the security of this nation. Now, the Great White Brotherhood does not always operate in the methods which mankind might suppose that we operate. Guided by God, guided by the Great White Brotherhood's supreme code of honor and love for God, we sometimes are forced to keep company with what you might call brigands upon earth. And I refer now to those among mankind who are known as spies and counter-spies. Can you imagine, beloved ones, beloved Jesus, or those others of our beautiful band, in consort with these brigands? Well, this is my task, and I have an appetite for it. Precious and beloved ones of the light, I hope that you understand that there is a great protection in this service. Those of you who are familiar with the book called The Spy by Cooper will perhaps recognize that these individuals are often dishonored by their own government and repudiated by the enemy. Sometimes members of their own family, not knowing the secrecy to which they are pledged, do them dishonor, and some of them have found their family arrangements were disconcerted by reason of their service to their nation. These are dedicated individuals who have dedicated themselves to their work and their service, even as some of you have dedicated yourself to God. I cannot speak disparagingly of such as these, for the security of the nations has depended upon their conduct. They have lain upon their bellies in the mud, and they have crawled beneath moving objects. They have suffered dangers and exposures beyond human ideas or concepts. Precious ones, the internal turmoil of the world that has been leveled at them is absolutely terrifying to the average consciousness, and I do not choose to dwell upon it. I love these individuals who guard the security of this nation, and ever so frequently by great cosmic law, we are empowered from our octave to intercede between an actual bullet which is directed toward an agent of the Secret Service by an enemy, and to stop this bullet in midair. These events are not always known or discovered. They are seldom, if ever, reported, for those who witness them do not believe what has happened and consider that some object interfered, or that the shot misfired. Well, blessed and beloved ones, we know that it did not misfire, for we know that it was necessary to utilize a tremendous outpouring of energy in order to stop this specific object in midair. For this service, we have frequently used the very energy from the decree pattern of the students, which has been given in consecrated form to our hand and use. Some among you are aware of the fact that the ascended masters are not permitted to interfere in human matters unless there is a balance of energy coming from your octave, and this is consistent with cosmic law. O precious ones of the light, I do not wish to dwell upon the guardians of your internal security, but I do report to you that now, with the tremendous battle occurring between communism and so-called capitalism, which I do not particularly favor, preferring to say a battle between communism and democracy, there seems to be a more than ordinary tension in connection with activities of the Secret Service and those who guard the welfare of the nations and the family of nations. It is necessary then for each individual to be alert that in his internal trust in God and the power of prayer, he, together with the prophet Daniel, stands in the holy place of God in defense of this nation and all nations' liberty and the spirit of divine justice. I say to you today, you may not all serve the Secret Service in a direct manner. You may not all be a partaker of all of the elements of risk which these precious light streams encounter. But I do say to you that you can all stand shoulder to shoulder with them by the power of prayer, exhortation, consecration, and the offering of your energy for the protection of liberty and life upon this precious planet. The Goddess of Liberty has had a conference with me, or rather, I should say that I have had a conference with her. And I bow to her great wisdom in calling to you today to intensify the elements of protection in connection with the forces of freedom of Saint Germain. The students throughout the world have so many different items to decree for that sometimes it seems that one takes precedence over the other. But during this hour of peril, when the world is entering in to new perils almost daily, it is necessary for the Secret Service, which guards the democratic way of life, to be especially embellished with protection. And I therefore urge you to recognize your part in this silent service of light. I can manifest, it is true, but even as an ascended being, with all of my power, I call to your attention that I am restricted by cosmic law, and that mankind themselves have a certain responsibility which they must accept, for they are as much a part of God in their internal being as I am. For the mighty I Am presence within them is the self-same mighty I Am presence which I am. Therefore, beloved ones, my exhortation to you today is that you too can intensify the bands of protection around this nation and every nation. You can also act to protect mankind against the insidious infiltrations of the so-called brothers of the shadow, who would disseminate their perilous rays charged with the vibratory action of far lesser qualities than divinity toward mankind. When you come together here in this holy place, made holy by your thoughts and your love, beloved ones, you are aware that into this matrix we direct the perfection of our radiance. And so you feel the charge that goes forth from us, and you bask in the sunlight of our love. Know then, precious ones of the light, that the brothers of the shadow who are still active, for these that I speak of are those who were at one time pupils of the black magician, are still active throughout the world in radiating out to mankind qualities which are pure discord, intended to disintegrate all the protective forces of the world, intended to cause the students to feel pangs of anger toward one another without cause, inclined to spread calumny, deceit, and all manners of falsehood, not only among the students of the light, but among the family of nations. You have heard of a war of nerves. Well, beloved ones, this war of nerves is directed by those who would disintegrate and destroy the basic social structure which was intended to weave itself into the golden age pattern as the golden rule externalized through loving human hearts. You have heard men say that in these latter days the world is full of vicious and evil people. Well, I tell you, beloved ones, the world is full of precious and priceless people. There are dedicated and consecrated people found in every walk of life, and these precious people, who ought to pay attention to their own mighty I Am presence, are attacked constantly by these tools of the sinister force and the energies which they release to cause a disintegrating condition to occur within various spiritual societies and organizations. While I am grateful that you have held together here, I wish to say to you today that you ought to, because of the fact that you are holding together so well and magnifying the light so marvelously, recognize the opportunity for you to serve in drawing forth throughout this nation and other nations of the world spiritual people who will consistently weave the tapestry of immortal protection through organized effort directed toward God, rather than that which is disorganization and confusion. I tell you, in the secret service of the cosmic, we have a law, and it is this: organized concept. This is a fiat which we use among ourselves, organized concept. Beloved ones, so many concepts are loose-knit, and this is thought, which is dispersed. The eagle symbol of the United States, which holds in its talons the arrows, is a bundle of arrows, beloved ones, which are all held in the talon. I call to your attention that if these arrows were dispersed and were scattered abroad, they would not be nearly as effective as when held within the grip of concentrated power. Organized concepts, then, mean that you as individuals stop and pause to consider the effects of your acts. You recognize the power to focus your consciousness as through a burning glass. You recognize that as the sun's rays can be concentrated to start a flame, so you, by the power of organized effort, by meetings, by decrees, by songs, by purified, silent, and secret invocation, can invoke from the heart of heaven such a canopy of protection for America as has never before been externalized. And yet, that which has been sufficient for the days past. It will not do for the days that are to come. For before conditions throughout the world shall improve, there shall be some degree of worsening occurring in certain areas. And during that era, during that time, I advocate that the students of the light seek to multiply their numbers, seek to intensify their operations, and determine to bind up all of their wounds and the wounds of mankind by organized concepts of divine direction, God-guided, God-inspired, and God-intensified. I come to you today charged with the power of immortal love, but a love which is activated by those angels of Serapis band which remain here from his discourse of last evening. All of these angels are dedicated to the service of the beloved goddess of liberty as well as Serapis, and they also are joined by the angels of Saint Germain, who have chosen to hold here a focus of freedom. The area surrounding this meeting place for 1,000 feet is somewhat a seething cauldron of violet flame because of the energies which you have invoked. Now, the people who are walking through this area do not realize what is occurring in their outer consciousness. But I want you to know, beloved children of the light, that all the force field that is built up here, when this class disperses and you return to your homes, will be cut loose and return to the world to bless the cause of freedom throughout the entire earth. It will not be retained here. It will be used where it is needed, and will therefore bless every part of this world, including those where the students of the light now dwell, who for one reason or another were not able to enjoy the blessings of being seated in my immediate radiation. Beloved ones, spread your wings of cosmic light. Extend your threefold flame now from your heart. I would today externalize protection for each of you individually. The tiny seed threefold flame must grow and expand to become a mighty threefold flower, the fleur-de-lis of divine victory, the freedom flame of Saint Germain. Take then the blue plume within your heart and see it expand through your entire body. Consecrate the flame of divine will within you to the service of the light and the ascended Master. Feel it pulsate and rise from your form, rising high into the atmosphere above your head, circling out as a beautiful flower of light, a flower of light. Now as you behold it in manifestation, feel the pulsating Christ radiance of the wonderful flame of glorious sunshine yellow illumination pouring forth from your heart and rising high above your head into the atmosphere. The second plume of the threefold flame externalized. Now as I am speaking to you, feel the great waves of pulsating divine love, flame of Paul the Venetian, of mighty Orion, reaching up and extending toward the stars. The threefold flame in balanced manifestation, externalizing the threefold flame of Saint Germain. And now all becomes the pure gold of ordered service. An ordained and orderly concept. The immaculate electronic pattern of Saint Germain becomes your own. You are a miniature freedom flame. You, like an acetylene torch cutting through metal, can cut through the entrenched elements of society and the world and cause the world to become both organized and disorganized. Disorganized because the shattering power of the light will bring down that pride which ought to fall, but organized because it will exalt the Christ presence which ought to rise. In God we trust will then be emblazoned upon your heart. In God we trust will then be emblazoned upon your minds. In God we trust will be emblazoned upon your every act, and you will act in full faith. The secret service, beloved ones, is sometimes a very silent and unrewarding service. For mankind are not aware in gratitude of all that is done for them, neither can they be, for if we are to tell it, it will no longer be a secret. Precious ones of the light, hold then your flames steady upon the principles of immortality, and recognize that we are serving behind the scenes to protect this nation and the forces of freedom against all harm. You must give your energy, and those who say that they do not wish to decree are truly making a great error, which one day they will recognize with all of their hearts. These decrees may not always be the perfection which we desire them to be, for the simple reason that they are not thoroughly understood. And many times the students do not give their full energy or attention to the decrees. Many times they are not fully charging their attention into those decrees which are given. Many times when they give them, they have a sense of tiredness or fatigue, and they say to themselves, must I repeat this again? Well, beloved ones, by the power of the 3 times 3, you overlay the matrix and make it secure. And in that security there is 3 times 3, which is 9, and if you only gave it once, beloved ones, it would only be once. But when you give it 3 times, it becomes 3 times 3, rather than 3 times 1, which is 3. Do you see, beloved ones? There is then an important law acting here, where the matrix of all that is God's will is fulfilled in your silent service, which in this case becomes a vocal service, but it is silent insofar as mankind knows, for they do not realize why world events far flung from this scene are occurring by reason of an individual or a group of individuals giving a fiat to Almighty God. Yet, throughout the jungles of the world, the beat of the tom-tom carries and conveys messages in a perfect rhythm, traveling from post to post and from outpost to outpost. Beloved ones, do you realize then that by the orderly spiritual rhythm of these decrees, you are giving mankind the beat of their freedom? The martial music of Saint Germain, sounded forth by the chorus of 10,000 voices, would give the world a freedom it has never known before. Beloved ones of the light, all falsehood and calumny, all untruths must fall before the light itself, and whatever statements men make that are not true, they shall fall to the earth and be shattered, and all truth shall remain inviolate, and no one by breaking the law can destroy the law. They only destroy themselves, and all noble efforts of those who are the builders among mankind. I say then to every builder, salutations from the great white brotherhood. You are constructive in your endeavors. You have consecrated your energies to the light. You have understood the fiats of the great white brotherhood. You have recognized your responsibilities to God and country. You have understood the meaning of spiritual secrecy. You have understood that you too can be a candidate for the Cosmic Secret Service, acting as an undercover agent in this sense, that you can supply us with the spiritual energy which we need to discover all that ought to be discovered and reveal it to those to whom it ought to be revealed on the instant that it ought to be revealed, in the interest of sealing the protection of this planet from those who would spoil and destroy all of the virgin beauty of the divine civilization conceived in the mind of God. That which is conceived in the mind of God is conceived in the mind of Saint Germain. For Saint Germain has attuned himself with the mind of God to such a degree that there are times when there flashes forth from the mind of the infinite mighty I Am Presence in the great central sun a thought simultaneously that it flashes forth in the mind of Saint Germain. Now I bring this to your attention because it is something that you ought to know. For you can emulate Saint Germain, and you can become what we call a spontaneous reactor to the ideas of God born within the heart of the great central sun. When an idea is born within the heart of the great central sun, and it is born simultaneously on the instant within the heart of Saint Germain, it means that he is absolutely congruent as a triangle of perfection with the divine triangle of perfection within the heart of the sun. and this mighty triad of light that radiates out from the great central sun radiates out in Saint Germain. And this mighty triad of light can radiate out in you individually and make you perceive a focus of Saint Germain wherever you move. And the electronic pattern of light which you yourselves, beloved ones, externalize today around you can become the breathing, tangible essence of God from out the great central sun. Is there any greater protection than that in the cosmic secret service or anywhere else in the universe? I ask you in God's holy name. Ladies and gentlemen, inasmuch as I must sometimes be gentle and secretive as well, I choose now to take my leave of you, but I would like to tell you that an old friend of yours is here whose name I cannot reveal, for I must be very secretive about it. But I am sure that some of you who know him well will discover that he is here. I prefer that you keep it to yourself, for this individual is not connected at this time in the minds of men with this movement, and yet he is very much connected with it, for we are all working together at our level, and there is no disconnection whatsoever. Greetings to you, my heart friend of old. Together now we serve in this cause of guarding and protecting the world. May we enlist the aid of these brothers of light in this sacred cause. May these sisters of light be charged with a mighty force field, which is our own. We would share it with them. Of this I am sure. And I speak for you anonymously, though I speak. May they then receive the joint radiation of our love poured forth from our heart, into which matrix Saint Germain himself entered, and he shall speak for himself this day. Enjoy yourselves in quietness, and enjoy that food which you shall partake of before the coming service. With the spirit of divine grace and light, that which was externalized in my lovely sister, I speak to you now from heart, head and hand in God's blessed name. Thank you for listening to me. I am K17 in the Cosmic Secret Service, blessing you with the infinite light of the Holy Christ Self in each of you. Thank you and good afternoon. Life is wonderful. Life is pure. Life is God. From the great source of all, you, each one, precious identities of the Most High, came forth, breathing the essence of His flame, of His identity. You entered the era of the years, light years, each one. Have you thought, O beloved children of God, of the meaning of the years as light years? Then do so. For light is pure, and it will enliven your concepts of life with greater purity as you meditate upon the years as being charged with light. Gazing through a pane of sooted glass, mankind cannot perceive the glorious light of the sun shining in its splendor. The great realities of life are hidden from mankind's consciousness by the opacity and density which he himself has created and absorbed from those around him. And yet all are charged with the same flame, with the same identity, and came forth from the same source. Ponder now, precious ones, the mystery of your identity, and consider it no longer as a mystery. Does it seem as though I speak in enigma? Does it seem as though life is a mystery? Then, beloved ones, strip it of all the mystery which is shadow and shadowed substance, and gaze into the purity of the unfailing light of God. Consider yourselves for a moment no longer in a sense of a conglomerate mass, no longer cluttered with an accumulation of events which have occurred down the passing years, but consider a piercing beam of eternal substance to have radiated forth from the great central sun. See this piercing substance of divine purity pass through all the spheres of density and of experience until they reach the very periphery of life, where men seem to be the farthest from God. Recognize then that wherever man finds himself, whatever is his station, he is still an emanation of the radiation of his own mighty I Am presence, and this is the holy identity, and all that is this God which is life in manifestation. Surrounding the flame of divinity through misuse of human will, man has created a parade of phantoms, and these, like a merry-go-round that seems to be real, pass before the light and cast shadows upon the screen. This must pass. Man must forget the shadows and face the light and purity of themselves in that childlike simplicity that admits to no error, but beholds the shining celestial identity of selfhood. the precious Aida, is the identity of each man, the radiant and pure holy Christ self, the mighty I am presence. These are the treasures of heaven. Your lower identity, that which has been lowered into form, is not the reality of you. It is here in this school of earth, seeking experiences in order to find its way back to a realm of movement and light and color and glory, where there no longer rules the shadows created by man's imaging, the imagination of man, which of old by the great ones was declared to be evil. The imaginations of men's hearts have intruded through error, wrong and aborted images upon the life screen. But it shall pass. I reiterate, I state for you, it shall pass, and the flame shall remain. The flame shall stand. The flame shall not pass. Recall, beloved ones, that when Moses stood before the burning bush, that the words that came forth from the bush, which was not consumed, were these: I am that I am. And so immortal being spake unto Moses and said, Put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the ground whereupon thou standest is holy ground. The physical chalices in which you sit as living flames is hallowed ground. It need not be conceived of as being born in sin or inequity. It can be now conceived of and ought to be held in consciousness as being born from your own mighty I am presence. It is true that the seed of God shall remain forever. Pause and reflect upon generation for a moment, and then pause and reflect upon regeneration. Generation, beloved ones, is cut off and ceases to be. Regeneration can never be stopped. It can never cease. It will never cease to be, for it is the light of God that never, never, never fails. It is the light of the great white brotherhood. It is the light that shines and pierces through the veil of Maya and delusion and brings to men consolation in the hours when they seem to be most desolate. Come with me now in consciousness. Think for a moment of the meaning of initiation. What is initiated, beloved one? Your divine self is born of the flame. Your divine self is the same today, was the same yesterday, and so shall it forever be. As the Gita has declared, never was the spirit of man born, and it shall never cease to be. Beloved ones, that internal reality, the life that is God within, has no beginning nor ending, and therefore initiation, precious ones, occurs in order to lead the child to his divine manhood. When man becomes a true man of God, he can then put away childish things. And when the highest initiations have been passed, man stands in simplicity before the greatness of his own mighty God-self, but not bereft. Precious ones of the light, do you think when you enter into simplicity, from this complexity which manifests here, that you will be in any way losing anything that is precious to you, or that is your rightful inheritance? Oh, my beloved ones, what folly there is in the carnal mind! Mankind fearing to return to their great divine identity. It is a puny idea, and it is so much held in human consciousness. Those who would aspire then to obtain the kingdom of God must cast aside the idea that in entering the kingdom of God they are moving into a realm where there is less life from greater life. This life here may seem complex, and transitory happiness may seem to occur. But when you enter the higher octaves, it is to lay aside a garment of outworn concepts and to obtain the priceless treasures of immortality. You may wonder, precious ones, why the ascended beings do not always reveal all that does occur and that has occurred in the higher octaves unto men who seek. You may sometimes wonder why we do not declare in absolute worded instruction just every event that takes place in our octave. Beloved ones, so many of these events are unspeakable. Those of you familiar with the writings of Paul, who is now the loved Ilarian, will recall how that he stated that a man was caught up into the third heaven and heard unspeakable words which it is not lawful for man to utter. Do you realize, beloved ones, that it is necessary to always pass out that instruction to mankind which will enable him to cut himself free? Therefore the great white brotherhood, in all of its outpouring through many and manifold organizations which we have empowered, has revealed to mankind the laws of life that enable them to master the present hour and then secure in that divine union which emerges from living as God intends the necessary purity of action which will draw more of itself to the center of that man's identity. Do you see, beloved ones, that if you hold a magnet up before iron filings, they are attracted to the magnet which is a greater mass? This, beloved ones, illustrates to your consciousness that you must always be attracted to the greater realities of life. You must be attracted to your own mighty I Am presence, and not to the filings that may be around you. They must all do as you do, gaze upward toward the burning bush which is not consumed. Recognize that in obtaining the glories of heaven, you are not losing the glories of earth. For the glories of earth become transmuted and changed in the twinkling of an eye. And in the glory of your ascension, earth will be happily forgotten as it is exchanged for those unspeakable states of consciousness in which we abide and dwell. Some of us, descending into your atmosphere, as I have done this night, speak loving words of purity and kindness unto mankind in order to inspire mankind that men may continue the search and not grow weary of that search. Precious ones of the light, how many hours do you think that we spent upon this planet before our own ascension? How many days do you think that we suffered feelings of weariness and oppression created by human density? And yet we held fast to the mighty flame that is within us, and that we knew at that hour was there, even though its shining may have seemed limited because of the density which surrounded the earth during those dark ages after the fall of Atlantis. Precious ones, I would like to say to you tonight that initiation is something that you need to hope for. And as you hope for initiation, initiation will come to you, because by your hope and your faith breathed into it, it will be invoked in due time. Mankind sometimes tremble because the days seem to fly past them, and they have not attained spiritually all that they would desire. The illusion of age, beloved ones, need not trouble you if you will think of yourself as a flame rather than a physical body. As you think of yourself as a physical body, you seem to continually absorb the imperfection of the outer world. Recall how that in earlier days men and women lived to be much older, chronologically speaking, but as they begun to absorb the imperfection and ideas of human creation from one another, the wrinkles begun to appear, and mankind, absorbing this imperfection, expressed it on the outer, because they absorbed it within their own consciousness. I plead then for a renewal of purity. In God's name, beloved ones, how long must human density absorb and hold your attention? As I am speaking tonight to you through this life stream, I am aware of each act and thought of all in this audience. It is as clear to me as though I had hours to contemplate each one of your thoughts. I could make comments if I chose concerning those thoughts and lay some of them bare, but I prefer to ignore every thought of a human heart which does not express the complete perfection of its own God identity. Many of you are filled with wonderful thoughts and wonderful ideas of hope. Some of you have a mite of curiosity concerning many spiritual matters, and this I can understand. And in one sense of the word, the Brotherhood will humorously encourage this, for we have frequently found out that as mankind's curiosity draws them closer to the light, that they are, like the moth, pulled in, and the human is consumed in this case by the mighty flame of God's glory. And therefore evil does not befall them, but good. It is well to be a bit curious about spiritual matters, providing the curiosity does not become critical. And this, beloved ones, is a point that I would like to make clear to you. It is not wise to criticize the ascended masters, or even those on the outer who are serving them, for this is a karmic matter of great responsibility, and therefore we have frequently closed our meetings, which contain the most tremendous radiation, to those who are not fully initiated into the inner action of the great law when we are speaking. I therefore say most kindly to those of you who have not had the privilege before of hearing an ascended master address, be wise and judge not. But think, beloved ones, of the thread of light that connects you with my own spiritual power and the one through whom I am speaking. This thread of light becomes at times a tangible flashing flame of brilliance and glory, and that is in the concept that I am holding for you, a concept of spiritual purity, which exalts you out of human concepts, which raises the flame within your houses of clay, above the houses of clay, extending hopeful, radiant spirals of light up toward your own mighty I Am presence, in order that you may draw from your own great light source the power to walk in this day with full aspiration toward the great hopes that heaven has for you. Identity. Beloved ones, God is your identity. You are citizens of heaven itself, and the universe is your home. Purity, the heart of purity, is yours to behold. Human density may sometimes oppress mankind and make the atmosphere heavy, but our light rays penetrate like a knife, like a welder's torch. They pass through metal. They heat the atmosphere with spiritual love until all the dross is drawn off and mankind finds the pure, refined gold of spiritual attainment manifesting in their being. The refining fires are good, beloved ones, and tonight, in contemplation of the majesty of this class, I am creating a fire of light in the midst of this place. Because I find some density acting here, I have desired to gradually step up the tempo of our radiation in order to pierce the maya that comes solely from ignorance and not from malintent. Individuals who come here are usually charged and imbued with the idea of obtaining more of perfection from the mind and heart of God. They seek our assistance, and as brothers of light, we delight in giving it. Sometimes individuals, not knowing the modus operandi of the spiritual masters, do not quite understand how we operate or how these events occur, and in the curiosity of phenomena they lose the blessing. Well, I intend tonight to point out to those to whom this may be somewhat new that the light of God that surrounds you is the same light and substance from which you are created and sustained. Your own mind, precious ones, is the mind of God. Rightfully used, it possesses the power to create all that is necessary for your life stream to survive and attain the fullness of Godhood. Wrongly used, it becomes somewhat diabolical at times, and the machinations of evil are created also by mankind's misuse of the spiritual powers of life. All power is truly spiritual if you wish to carry it to the final state of consciousness. Even physical power, beloved ones, derives its power from a spiritual source and force field. Therefore, man is truly accountable ultimately to the spiritual side of his identity rather than to the material. For this reason, and for other reasons, mankind have been given the gift of sleep, so that by resting in the so-called arms of Morpheus, mankind may find freedom from outer world distress, and their free spirit, shall I say, may rise to purer realms to absorb the radiant perfection of God and to charge new life into them, which otherwise, because of human imperfections which have been absorbed in the course of the day, would tend to cause them to run down like a spring of an old clock. Beloved ones, you are not an old clock, and you are not spring-wound. You are electronic in nature, and the pattern of holiness is within you. This pattern of holiness, then, which is electronic, is the power of light, and the power of light does not tire or run down. It is infinite in capacity, and can be drawn forth and charged forth into your world until your world becomes pure, so that you yourself stand within the burning bush of your own identity and observe how that those opacities of human creation are consumed, but the reality of yourself, the true skeletal form of divinity, and I am referring now to divinity as manifestation, beloved ones, is not consumed. Do you understand, beloved ones, that by the ritual of the ascension you ascend to your own divine self, and there you obtain the true identity of yourself? You are not lost in the process, beloved ones, but you are gained. For beloved Jesus made it so clear in his statements, where he declared to mankind that he who seeks to save his life shall lose it, and he who loses it for my sake shall find it again. This, beloved ones, is the law, and though it is stated in other ways, it still is the law and will always be the law. Earlier this evening, as I mused upon the things that I desired to say to you, I probed into the thoughts and feelings of some of you in this audience, and I perceived a great longing in many of you to escape, as it were, from the coil of mortality, as beloved Saint Germain declared long ago in his writings of Shakespeare. Beloved ones, you desired then to shuffle off this mortal coil, and it was not in death that you desired to shuffle it off, but it was because of the oppressions and the destructive intents of mankind and the densities which you encountered that you desired to thrust it off for a season, as it were, or for a few moments. And so, beloved ones, I decided in my consciousness that I would, in my speaking to you tonight of purity, illustrate for you a spiritual experience and then draw you into that experience so that a matrix might be formed whereby you could absorb some of the glories of our temple at Luxor. Beloved ones, then, let me construct in words for you tonight a divine idea. You are now no longer here in this blessed city of Washington, but you stand at the hour of twilight, just after the sun has passed from view, before the great pyramids. You, beloved ones, can still feel the heat of the sun which is shone down upon the desert sands. As you stand there, you turn from right to left, and you see beside you many pilgrims. The feet of all of these pilgrims are bare, and each pilgrim holds a staff in hand. Each pilgrim is arrayed in a white robe which is given to them. They stand waiting a signal to come from within the great temple. And as they stand there, suddenly they are all imbued at once with the idea of the word harmony. With the coming of this idea into their consciousness, a tone is born within their heart. It is as though ministering angels were playing a song of great divine purity and harmony within their consciousness and within your consciousness. Precious ones of the light, as you are imbued with this wonderful divine idea of waiting for initiation, standing in your white robe, free from the weight of your physical body, free from the oppressions and cares of the moment and the years, and conscious only of the great surging power of God coming down the channels of the light years, you stand waiting to be initiated into the sacred fire mysteries. The Hierophant, you know, is within the temple. You have not even heard the sound of his voice as he chants. The wind, the breezes blow to your nostrils the odors of sweet incense, and suddenly you hear the chanting of the priests themselves, those initiates who have preceded you in spiritual unfoldment. You listen, and your heart beats with great expectation. You know that some wonderful event must occur, and that this event must engrave itself forever upon your blessed consciousness. And you know that when this precious event engraves itself upon your consciousness, it will be a step upon the ladder of life that leads you back to the heart of God and freedom from all pain and shadow and darkness and density and all that is of the material tomb of matter. You stand then in hope, and you breathe the air and the fresh winds of immortality. The incense does not speak of death, nor does it speak of an end. The incense speaks of the flowers that have given their life, as it were, to mankind, and the essence and perfume of the flowers is immortal. As each one inhales it, it becomes a part of their life, entering forever into their being, permeating them with the substance of sweetness, immortal sweetness and purity, divinity, angelic power. This comes to your consciousness. Then you suddenly are electrified, for you feel that a command has been given, and the column begins to move forward. Breathlessly, you wonder just what will occur next. Suddenly you stand yourself at the gate of the temple. You pass through. The odor of incense is now stronger. The chants of the priests seems to surround you. The tones can be felt throughout your body, like the pressings of a great and giant organ. You rejoice in a spirit of holiness, and you feel that God is very near, no longer apart from reality. You feel a sense of being at home. You are with your brethren, the brethren in white. This is the great white brotherhood. You are a part of this holy band. You are moving through the portal of initiation. You are standing now before the altar. The mighty hierarch, the very hierarch who initiated Jesus, stands before you. And he extends to you arms of infinite love. Suddenly your fears have vanished. Your cares are gone. You recognize that it is the divine plan that you should be initiated. And all of the fears that you have had, blessed ones, that you yourselves would not be worthy, suddenly are gone, and you realize that God is not partial. You realize that you are precious to life and to God. And in this realization, you have purified and purged your consciousness of any fear that God would favor one life above another. And as you have purged yourself of this wrong idea about God, you are able to be initiated into your divine sonship. Now the hierarch places his hand upon your head. An electric current passes through your body, and it is as though many years have passed away, and you stand as a youth before him. Surely now life will be different. If you are permitted to return to the outer world, you will know the meaning of life and love in a more infinite manner. This thought occurs to you. A prayer is breathed to heaven for forgiveness for all of the wrong thoughts you have held in the past concerning God and heaven and your fellow men. Surely if you are a part of all this light and loveliness, then they too must be a part of the self-same loveliness. The world is wonderful. Life is wonderful. Life is pure. Life is God. In this realization, there is a dropping away and a falling away of the fetters that bind you. You suddenly feel yourselves levitating into the air. And the hierarch himself seems now below you, for you are rising. Even the chambers in which you are rising do not contain you. You pass through the walls as though they were mere paper. You find yourself soaring toward the stars. And as you gaze around yourself, you see others rising with you into the air, meeting the divine concept, recognizing what the ascension means. The ascension flame is not just a name. It is not just an idea. It is not just some human statement. The Great White Brotherhood is not the figment of men's imagination. Independence, beloved ones, comes to you then in this initiation because you depend upon God. And suddenly you realize that God has vested you from the very beginning with a will which is his own. And you realize in this initiation that you have willed wrongly for yourself. And then by a purification of the divine will, beloved ones, the divine will is the will that you use. You, yourself, beloved ones, use the divine will wrongly. You may wonder why I call it the divine will. I call it the divine will because it is rightfully the divine will and not your own at all. Beloved ones, you are suddenly free. For the first time, you realize that you are truly free. And then your eyes open, and you are safe in your bed in this wonderful world here. And it was only a dream. Which is real, precious ones of the light? This life, or the reality from whence I am speaking? You will know one day. You can know today. The acceptance of these divine ideas is a sword of divine discrimination, which cuts you free by divine purity from human concepts and enables you to obtain for yourself a greater degree of spirituality. Mankind may do all in their power to ridicule this idea. How many people in this precious world do you think, beloved ones, have found the power of mental and spiritual healing to be efficacious? How many people know that by the power of a right thought, the human body will respond and healings occur? Spiritual healing, precious ones, occurs by a purification of the consciousness. And I am come tonight in the name of that precious goddess of liberty, to whom I bow, the spokesman for the great karmic board. She desires your purity and your freedom as I do, and as every ascended master does. Do you think, precious ones, that Saint Germain would not give his very right arm if he thought that by doing so he could free even one of you from the thraldom of the senses? Well, I tell you, he would give more than his arm. He would give both of his arms and his very life also. But because he knows that your life is your own, and that your will is your own, and that your being is your own, until you, acting as God, choose to liberate it, he, as I do, stands in divine patience, rendering all the assistance that the great cosmic law will allow, and leaving the rest to your own discriminating Christ intelligence and your perception and your willingness to heed our words, to heed the call of your own mighty I Am presence, and to cut yourself free. During this Independence Day class, would it not be a most magnificent thing, precious ones, if many of you, nay, all of you, nay, all of the world, could embrace this idea of spiritual independence and cut themselves free from outer ideas? You might not look any different, beloved ones, at the end of the week, but all within, the difference would be apparent to us, and it would not take long before it would be apparent to you. And I think in some cases, seeing some of you are so close to your ascension, that it might make just the difference between making that ascension at the close of this embodiment and not making it. For it is sometimes a little feather thrown in the balance scale that tips it. And in the name then of cosmic justice and mercy to yourselves and to humanity, would it not be a wonderful gift to yourselves and to God and to the ascended masters if you would recognize what the great white brotherhood really is? Many of you have believed with infinite faith in our brotherhood for years and years. Some of you have partially believed. A few of you have doubted a little and believed a little. Well, beloved ones, we have not criticized or condemned anyone for their stand, and we do not intend to do so. But we would to God, only for your sake, that you could accept more and more of the fullness of your mighty I Am presence. For we know then that human concepts would not long endure within the force field of your being. We know then that you would stand immaculate, pure and free before God. The mighty golden eagle from Venus stands as a symbol before you in the setting. Will you then join me during this class in renewing your intention to participate in your ascension at the close of this embodiment? Will you, precious ones of the light, take renewed vows within the sanctity of your own being, in this case tonight, not acknowledged before anyone in this audience, but only acknowledged before your own divine self? Make a determination to permit the great flame of the ascension to surge through you daily. Do you know what this will mean to the world? Beloved ones, do you know what it will mean to the ascended masters? Do you know and do you realize that it will bring many to the summit of their own divinity? And as they approach this great summit of their divinity, it becomes Bethany's hill for all. It means freedom. Freedom from all oppression, from all density. And it means happiness to mankind. For as you outpicture the ascension flame, it will break forth in many hearts as singing, as harmony. O beloved ones, have you ever read how that a mob in a frenzy have committed great crimes because the spirit of evil seemed to leap like flame from heart to heart? Consider a better concept then. Think of the flame of purity leaping from heart to heart. As it leaps from your heart, from my heart to your heart, from your heart to others, it can change the world, and it will. The earth is entering a wonderful era. Much service must be rendered the light. In the balance of this class that is to come, you will receive much wonderful instruction. The instruction may be important, but the practice of it is vital. O angels of the ascension flame, blaze through these thy holy children in the holy name of God. Charge and charge and charge into them the sacred fire from the altars of heaven. Let the sacred coal, the great central sun atom within their hearts, locked within the heart of their threefold flame, glow and rise and pulsate anew with the realization of the meaning of initiation. They are thy children, O God. Thou great I Am presence, kindle them within them, this flame anew. In the name of your own mighty I Am presence, and in the name of God from out the great central sun, I, Serapis, bless you each one with the coolness of purity to remove any sting from the flame, for the flame comes to heal. May a great surge of spiritual purity now pass through this audience and remain with you for many, many hours. Appropriate it and use it. It is charged with my love. It is charged with your love. I thank you, and good evening.
Chananda, send we love and adoration. Son of light from heaven's light, with beauty, love, and power, as chief of the Indian council of the great white brotherhood, we call for a new birth to sweep the earth. For Indian illuminations flame. Let East and West unite in holy
Let's enfold all of the students of the unfailing light of God throughout America with the love of the brothers of the Diamond Heart and the brothers located in India and throughout the Far East. The beauty and holiness of God's divine brotherhood enfolds all nations in a family of light and peace. Tranquility is multiplied by the kindness of men's hearts in their receptivity to the divine spirit of truth. Precious ones of the light, the universal spirit of truth, promulgated and extended to all upon earth by the great white brotherhood, is a direct emanation of the very Spirit of God. We are messengers and channels of this tremendous light. We are entrusted by divine responsibility with the dissemination of the truth and light of God which is within the hearts of man, and all mankind ought to pay allegiance to the light within their own hearts, for in the flame of that illumination they will find the peace that will enable them to receive our love and our blessing. Universality means exactly that mankind are able to recognize the common source, and in paying allegiance to that source, which is the presence, the power, and the reality of God, the creative power of the universe, they are borne upward on spiritual wings into the great light of God that never fails, and all lesser conditions pass away from their consciousness, and every God quality manifests in the light. Beloved ones, mankind today, in all of their seeking, often go far afield from the regions of truth in their ignorance. The pole star of divine magnetism, of spiritual power, ever directs men back to the true north, the center of their being, the source of all life. However, sometimes it is necessary, in order for men to learn and to understand the great laws of God, to lose their way for a moment, until when they find it again, they may treasure the path far more than they treasured the freedom to wander in the byways of truth and the highways of life, away from the great central line of God's temple, which radiates a plumb line toward this planet, and the wise will build according to that plumb line. Beloved ones, the foundation of all truth is your own mighty I Am presence, the source of your life and your power. Outer conditions may change and vary. Ideas may flow freely through your consciousness. But you, as an idea of God, must hold fast to the presence of God if you would continue to express the virtue He intends you to have and to be and to know. The Indian Council is one with the Council of the Brotherhood in South America, and across the great curvature of the earth there stretches an arc of spiritual radiance, connecting the various temples of the Brotherhood. On this pathway of light, the wise and perceptive in their finer bodies walk as upon a rainbow bridge of beauty, from one retreat to another, and contact always, at all times, the Spirit of truth, the Spirit of life, the Spirit of holiness, the Spirit of God. I am come this day in order to strengthen in the bonds of the western branches of the brotherhood the radiance that is emanating from the far east, to bring to you the greetings of those in our temples of light, and to receive from you in return the tokens of your heart's love, which you silently pour out to your own divine being. Take heed then, beloved ones, that the light that is in you is not darkness or shadow. Pay attention to the radiance of God, which flows forth in love, wisdom, and power. See that there is no impediment in your consciousness or thought toward any of your brothers anywhere upon the earth, or toward any activity of light, or toward any specific idea which is holy and pure. Take heed that you keep your consciousness simple. The reason why we recommend this is the same reason that beloved Jesus in his ministry advocated that mankind should be as a little child, and that unless they were as a little child in consciousness, they could not enter in. Beloved ones, wise men throughout the earth, in many parts of the world, have laid their wisdom at the feet of their own God self, and recognized that in the central source of all, the power of their wisdom is but a diffusion of the light of God through the prism of their being, that the manifest colors of the rainbow, the radiance of life, came from the pure white light source of all. And simply because they were a marvelous prism and were able to balance the energies of their life and manifest upon the screen of life greater wisdom, did not set them apart or disconnect them from their source. It rather connected them more closely with their source, and yet they could not find their way in many cases back to their source through their mere intellect. But they had to recognize the connection of that intellect with the spiritual power that is in the universe and resident within the being and force field of each man's consciousness. You then, beloved ones, today must pay allegiance, if you would have your freedom, to your own God self in such basic and pure simplicity as to simply acknowledge your own God being. When you utter the words, I am, and you declare with the full consciousness of God that God in you is speaking, and you recognize that when you utter his name, those sacred tones and syllables draw into your being the fiber of his vibrant life, you are charged with all wisdom and all love and all power. You utter this fiat each time that you speak his holy name, I am. And when you do so, there is an expansion of the mighty threefold flame of life within your heart. As this life expands, the life in all expands. And herein I would impart what to some may be a secret, and to others is well-known truth, that any man, woman, or child upon this planet who expands a threefold flame of life within their heart expands a threefold flame of life within every heart. Oh, it is ever so true, beloved ones, that it is most minute in others, in so much so that if mathematically you were to divide it properly, you would find that you would need to divide all of the life streams upon earth and find that the expansion was only that number by one. Do you see then, beloved ones, that there is a very slight magnification of the flame within others, within every life upon earth, when any one of you expand the flame within your heart? But now, beloved ones, in the most simple of mathematics, let me point out to you that when all life upon earth are conscious of the law and expand the force field of the mighty threefold flame within their hearts, that the accomplishment of the one becomes the accomplishment of all, and the assistance of all life is given to each one. This is divine and spiritual universality carried out, as some of you might say in your own colloquial forms, to the nth degree. Precious ones of the light, the nth degree is the 9th degree, the 3 times 3 of spiritual power. And this is necessary too, that you understand that by the power of the 3 times 3, you are able to expand the life force within every one upon this planet and confer upon them a blessing. How do you suppose, beloved ones, that through the ages, when human consciousness was inverted and turned away from its great source within each life toward outer conditions, and men gazed without on externals and beheld the ponderousness of life, holding wrong concepts in their consciousness of nations, of men, of universal law, how do you suppose the balance of power was kept for this planet when millions were creating discord, when millions were unconsciously contributing to a river sordid with human ideas and concepts? How do you suppose that during those eras the mighty tides of life, of spiritual life, kept this planet alive and a part of the systems of worlds to which it belongs? Precious and beloved ones, it was by the faith locked in the hearts of the few who expanded by spiritual means the great cosmic light in the hearts of those bound in ignorance and unbelief. The power of one individual, the majority of one, to extend the kingdom of God to others is apparent in the lives of all great avatars of the past. Surely all of you will recognize, as I speak to you this morning, that there have been any number of unknown and unsung avatars descending from God, who by reason of human records, who by reason of a lack of television, radio in those days, recorded books, they have faded into a state of anonymity. Do you see then, beloved ones, that that does not remove their acts and virtue from the pages and annals of Almighty God? Their lives and the virtue that was embodied within them remains eternally recorded in the heavens, and it is ever so unto the present day. For the acts of virtue which men commit today are recorded to their life stream and assist the mighty cause of freedom. The tides of liberty and spiritual life rise in direct proportion to the amount which they are fed by human attention, turned toward the source of God, the source of all. It is true that our brotherhood of light can channel and funnel enormous quantities of spiritual radiance toward the earth, but this is merely the cup brimming over, and the tide of life that pours over the sides of the cup of life is not retained therein, but flows over. And the overflow, beloved ones, returns to the universal love of God, to be reissued and poured forth again upon invocation. Only the cup that is enlarged enough to retain the great tides of spiritual life, can hold the wonderful spiritual concepts. You recall, precious ones, the parable of the 5 wise and 5 foolish virgins. Beloved ones, you must recognize that the spiritual oil for your lamps must be retained within the lamps, and that the reservoir thereof must be sufficient for the dark and shadowed concepts of mankind, so that the light will continue to shine even through the midnight hour until the breaking of the dawn. In this day, this early day of the dawning golden age, it is needful that men and women of today externalize the spiritual truths that are familiar to them and retain those truths as manifest acts of integrity within their lives. The Great White Brotherhood may continue to serve, may continue to pour out its radiance in its wondrous spiritual conclaves which I so frequently attend. But mankind can only be benefited by that which they retain within the cup of their consciousness. Let us pray then, beloved ones, for the expansion of men's cup of consciousness, that they may be able, in expanding that cup, to recognize that the tides of life will always overflow, for the tides are infinite. But the consciousness of mankind may always be blessed by a greater expansion. There is never any ultimate in this great universal law of God's grace. And yet, precious and beloved ones, as the days swiftly pass and more good is externalized, men continue to repeat, how wonderful. As you gaze upon a simple flower alongside the road, as you behold the wondrous construction of that flower, bursting forth from a seed without the benefit of human machinery or human concepts, as you see how it is shaped in all of its wondrous symmetry and form and color and life and radiance and essential oils and perfume, you recognize that the power of God expressing through the kingdoms of nature is most wondrous to behold. You recognize also that through the years, the natural kingdom has continued to bring forth and manifest new and precious outpicturings of divine grace. Beloved ones, when the consciousness of thorn and thistle is removed from man, when the barbed tongues of mankind are still toward their brother, and all words are the result of holy concepts breathed from within, the flowers and the thorns of the exterior world will be blunted and removed. They will be replaced by radiations of spiritual light pouring forth from the floral kingdom. At the present hour, the blessed elementals are tending these flowers and serving to surround them with God's great light and love. But when the day comes that there is a wedding, as Saint Germain has told you in the past, of gods and men, in the sense that the angelic kingdom, the elemental kingdom, and the kingdom of man is united by the power of the 3 times 3 in holy light, then the nature kingdom will be able to bring forth such beauty as your eyes have never before beheld, save this, that some among you, as you were waking in the morning hours, and your spiritual consciousness was yet bearing within it a memory of your journeys of the evening past, you remembered some glimpse of Elysian fields, of the divine beauty that came from higher octaves, and so you have had but a glimpse of the glory of God, made eternal in the heavens, a glimpse which the ascended masters share daily. And only when we come here to serve, when we enter the octave of mankind, do we find the reflection of human discord. Even as we approach the spheres of earth and the auras of individuals, we behold the density, the thickening shadows of the curtain of night dropping around mankind. And then we call for the light of God to descend, and the angelic host with all of their spiritual power rush in answer to our command. And mankind find a sudden surge of spiritual happiness passing over them in much the same manner as though the sea itself were to rise and become a mist, and the water element would baptize them with the light. May I request that proper decorum be maintained within this room while I am here, for this is a most delightful experience to be able to communicate with you. And to communicate with you is to bestow upon you the blessings of the brotherhood. Our light comes in great waves, but it comes in one sense of speaking upon a very slender thread which must not be broken. Beloved ones, the reason why we ask you to be exceedingly quiet, to keep your consciousness centered upon your own divine presence while we are speaking, is that you may receive our blessing. Therefore I return now to the thought of the sea. The water element, as it surges forth in the form of a mist to baptize the consciousness of mankind, is a purifying quality. The purity of the water element is in preparation for a descent of the fire of regeneration, the spiritual Holy Spirit, which then can regenerate not only man, but the kingdoms of nature. Then truly will the kingdoms of this world be the kingdoms of the Lord and of the Christ. The virgin beauty of the world will be manifest not for an hour, a year, or an era. The golden ages of the past, which rose and fell with mankind's rising and falling consciousness, will no longer occur, but one wonderful day will occur as spoken by John in his apocalyptic vision when he declared that the light of that city was God's light, and that there would be no night there, but only the spiritual radiation of the light of God that never fails. This then is the culmination of ages of mankind's crucifixion upon the planetary body, when the spirit of life within man has been crucified within his heart by reason of pain and human density. There arises then the emancipation of mankind from all bondage, and he is able to behold the wonderful and beautiful permanent golden age from which man shall never recede, and this planet shall know its victory, the victory of its Gethsemane. The Christ consciousness kneeling within the garden shall evoke from the very heart of God, as if it were great drops of spiritual life, the blood of the Christ consciousness rolling off from him, the precious power and courage to maintain the divine spirit of regeneration upon the planetary body. Man does not know in his outer consciousness what it means in terms of suffering to find the perfection of the light. All that was of Adam must be purged from consciousness, and all that is of Christ must be reinstated in consciousness. And then the first Adam shall become, as in the beginning, not only a living soul, but one who truly knows the meaning of the words, "Behold, I am the Lord thy God that brought thee out of the land of bondage." The burning and smoking lamp which passed before Abram will be understood to be the flame of illumination covered over with human density, and man will understand that all the subconscious unrealities which he has created must be purified in the immortal fires of God, and then that which stands forth can permanently grace life, and life will permanently grace it. The bridegroom, in truth, is then united to the bride. The spiritual marriage is accomplished, and it is not with light and darkness, but it is with light and light in its dual polarities. And all life will then know the peace of our brotherhood. These goals that I have spoken to you this morning are spoken to you for your inspiration and understanding. I do not expect in such a conversation as I have had with you that you shall be able to understand on the instant all the simile, the allegory, the parable, and the concepts which I have declared. Some of them you understood. Some you may have partly understood, and others you have dimly recognized. Some you may have stood in wonder and amazement of. But nonetheless, I have conferred upon you the blessing of the light of the East to those of you in the West who are waiting the spiritual vibration that shall consecrate this earth to that cosmic meeting wherein the brothers in light shall assist those of you who desire it to find your freedom and to point the way to others. Remember, precious ones, this one thing, that the Christ, whom you know as beloved Jesus, came to this earth and has stirred the hearts of men for 2,000 years. What do you think will occur when thousands of Christs stir the hearts of men? This is your opportunity. This is your day of service. The hands of heaven stand ready to assist you. The past is past. You may find in this dawning day the beginning of new opportunities of service and love. You may find in this present hour the means whereby you can cut yourself free from all past bondage. You need not tarry in shadow, for the light is all around you, and it is the light that gave you birth and consciousness in the beginning, and it is the light into which you shall ascend. This shall never pass, but the shadow shall surely pass. Therefore, I say unto you, hold fast to that which is good. Let no man or no human concept take the crown of your redemptive valor. In the name of the spirit of the Great White Brotherhood, in the name of the Indian Council, I, Chananda, take my leave. God bless you. Thank you, and good afternoon.